and worked during the day on various building and civil engineering projects. I was very fortunate to be with a firm that, after the reconstruction of England took place, it took about 5 or 6 years, or 6 or 7 years, and then to do that construction, they trained a lot of architects and quantity surveyors to manage it. And of course, at the end of the 6 or 7 years, there were too many of us, and they started making everybody redundant. And with a stroke of luck, I was with a firm that had connections with the government on civil engineering projects. And that's why we did the Mulberry Harbour and the Pluto, because we had a section that was able to produce costs of civil engineering projects, not just building works. It's totally different. It's a different field completely, building bridges and airfields and motorways and things like that, as against building houses and flats. So after the 7 years, all our people that were engaged on doing the costing for flats and houses and things like that, the reconstruction, were going to be made redundant. But luckily, we were invited by the Department of Transport to build the motorways. It was just out of the blue. The Department of Transport approached us to supervise the costing of the building of the motorways. So we started with the M1, London to Leicester, and then it followed from there on, from 1960 to 1992 when I retired. I had motorway after motorway after motorway on the shelf, waiting to be dealt with. So I was never out of work, and none of us were ever redundant. In the firm that we were with, we all were kept fully employed, and there was a salary paid to us every month. And loads of my friends that were working for other firms, they were all made redundant and had no money coming in, and newly married. It was a terrible state. So I was so fortunate to be in that position where I had full employment.
Do you know if it's true that bomb site rubble was used in the construction of the first motorways?
No, it wasn't used in the construction of motorways. Were built with jolly good materials. What happened was that when the East End of London was very badly hit with bombs, and all the rubble was taken to various parts of London, various areas where there were lakes, and the lakes were filled with this rubble. And then after the war, developers, in their wisdom, built houses and flats on these lakes, and in a very short time they sank, and they all had to be underpinned with piles all the way down to firm ground. It was a disgusting thing to do, to build it on rubble. That's what happened to the rubble. It was all put into lakes in surrounding areas in London and in other cities.
Oh, it's something I heard. I can't remember where.
It was all. By the time we built the motorways, there was no rubble left. I mean, we started the motorways in 1960, and by then, there's no rubble left.
Oh, it's good to be able to put these things straight sometimes.
Yeah, no.
Bring it back to the Berlin.
I was responsible for the M1, the M6, M25, M4, various other smaller ones in the north of England, and none of them were built on rubble.
You mentioned that your main role during the Berlin airlift was maintaining that light at the end of the runway. Can you tell me a bit more about what was involved in that?
Well, it was all dark at night. There were no lights at all on the airfield, air station, and as soon as it got dusk, one of my people would have to go all the way down the runway, both sides, and put glim lamps all the way down. And then one of my drivers would drive the big truck with a huge floodlight at the back of it down to the end of the runway, and it would focus on the runway, so that when pilots approached, they could see where the landing was, and also for the takeoff. It was safe for them to take off. It was lit up. Without that floodlight, they wouldn't be able to operate.
Were there ever any problems with the light?
No, it was a massive floodlight. We had a spare in case it went wrong, and it did go wrong. We had to bring the spare out, but it was diesel operated. It had its own engine, and it was a huge light. It was a very heavy thing to cart around. Yeah. I wouldn't like to drive it. Had a special driver take it to the end of the runway.
Did you have any other particular roles during the airlift period?
No, during the airlift, no. I wasn't involved during the day with my usual servicing of aircraft. All that came to an end. The important thing was to get the airlift going. All our meters and vampires, they all flew back to England. They didn't stay on the station. Once the airlift started, we got rid of all the other planes. It was the big Yorks and Yorks and some Lancasters. They were big planes to fill up with flour and coal and cars and whatever they needed in Berlin. That was the priority. There was no other activity on that. You wouldn't think that it was the same station as it changed so suddenly. It was a very sudden change. No lick trainer use, nothing like that. It's all finished.
Absolutely everything was put.
Everything had changed. Everything overnight. We were all concentrating on this airlift. It had to be a success. The Americans were very successful with it from what we understood, and we had to be successful as well. We just couldn't rely on the Americans doing it. A bit of animosity.
Well, did you notice a certain amount of animosity in that way at the time?
I think so. There was always talk about the Americans do this, the Americans do that. We've got to beat them. We can't let them do it without us doing it as well.
Quite competitive.
Yeah, it was.
Did he meet any Germans?
Well, we talked about that with him.
Yeah,
The guy in the library who wouldn't let them use the gramophone.
How they were dealing with the Berlin airlift as such.
All right, sorry, yeah. And did you have any contact with Germans during the airlift? Or?
None whatsoever. No. We didn't need them at all. No, we just... Their usual tasks on the station were no longer required.
Do you think your national service experience gave you something extra when you went back to civilian life?
Definitely. When I came out of the services and I went back to civil life, people said to me, "You're a changed person. You're very mature. You're nothing like you were when you were a boy that left to go in the Air Force." And I felt that way as well. I became very knowledgeable of the world at large, because can you imagine going into a training base, say, at near Leicester, Melton Mowbray, in a hut with 20 or 30 other boys on double bunks, and meeting people that lived all over the place, England, Ireland, Wales. Yeah, it was a different world. I'd never met people like that before. There were... I can't remember the individual jobs that they did, but I'd never met people that did that sort of thing before. It just opened my world. And then going to Germany and meeting all the people on the RAF station, it just broadened my outlook completely. It did me the world of good. I was so pleased I did it. I think everybody should have a chance to do that. It would do them good.
Where was he when the blockade was lifted?
He was back in civilian life, though, of course. Do you remember hearing about the end of the Berlin airlift?
No, I didn't hear about the end. It was a year after I was demobbed. I didn't. I understand it finished in this, was it the August or September 49, but I had no recollection of it happening. I was too involved in my studies to worry about anything like that. And it was a heavy period of studying for 3 or 4 years after I left the RAF.
And if the government were to announce that national service were coming back in some form, what would your reaction be?
I'd be thrilled. I think they should all do it. Definitely 18. It's a wonderful thing to become independent and become knowledgeable of what's going on in the rest of the world instead of living at home with their parents. Fantastic opportunity.
There's a statement with national service in it at the start. Well, it's got no context.
Do you think you could repeat that answer, saying, with national service stated at the start?
I believe national service should be.
Yeah, I believe that national service should be reintroduced because it's an opportunity to leave home and become worldly and understand what's going on in the rest of the world. Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, because we can fit that start in with the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
How are we doing on the list though?
I think we're pretty much done.
Having said that, I think a lot of youngsters now get the opportunity to go to university, which I didn't get, and that way they do leave home and they stand on their own 2 feet, become more independent. So it's virtually the same thing.